we're going to bring Simon Wood in now. Any comments, Matt, you need to share at the moment or anything?
No, I don't think so. We've had an email through from the Runsby family, and just saying that Ben and his dad are going to be doing a green bird list for January 2021, which evidently a lot of young birders are doing as well. So it's going to be basically biking and walking, recording in a patch of a 5-mile radius. So I guess the idea is not to jump in your car and produce lots of pollution, to stay local. It's safer as well in the current environment, and see what you can see throughout the start of the year. I think that's a great idea. Really, really good way to get the year off.
He lives close enough that he can do Rainham as well, so he'll be happy.
Yeah. He said he can get Rainham and Davy Down and Trafford Gorge in as well. So he's quite fortunate where he lives, definitely.
Nice patch. Welcome, Simon. Or is it Noddy?
It's Noddy, I think, tonight. I'm not going to sing though.
I think we need to see the rest of the jumper, Simon.
Rebel without a clause. Excellent. Brilliant, mate. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, you kind of we're just kind of gone through to lockdown.
Yeah.
And which was, there's some debate, my wife was saying. Some people believe it was March the 13th or 16th, and others it's March the 23rd, depending on whether you take Matt Hancock's speech or Boris's speech when it all occurred. I don't think it matters. It came and it was awful.
It was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, if I recall. That's all I can recall, because my daughter was in her last year. She was waiting to do her GCSEs this year, so all of a sudden, bang, that was it. No more school over. So I remember it quite vividly.
My birthday.
Your birthday. Happy birthday for whenever it was then.
Oh man, I'll change your birthday next year.
So yeah, it was. It sticks in. For some reason, I have the 17th in my head, but again, I think it's memory and time have done funny things this year. So
not hard.
I don't think I'd put a bet on it.
Yeah. But yeah, and then everybody was saying we're in unprecedented times.
Yeah.
Everything was unprecedented. So I thought, well, if we're in unprecedented times, we've got an unprecedented year, we better get the president in of the bird watching society.
That's
what a segue.
That's terrible.
But Simon is the president of the Essex Bird Watching Society, and he'll be sharing more about that, but particularly one of the keys is this particular book, isn't it? Kind of that you
my tone.
Your tone, Birds of Essex, and
multi-use. You can use it. You can not only read it, but you can use it to get to the books on the top of your show. You can stand on it and sit, and you can reach a bit higher. It will hold a door shut. It's multi-use, and it was a big endeavour.
Quite something, mate. But no, it's a brilliant book.
I would have to add that I had a lot of help from Nick Green. I don't know whether he's in tonight, but Nick Green gave me an awful lot of help with it as well. So I'd like to mention him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's really good. So we're all kind of seeing an early type of movement of migrants. Our appetite's whet.
Yeah.
We're kind of making our plans for trips and where we're going to be. I was supposed to be on Skocum Island kind of in April over my birthday, and everything just gets railroaded. For me, I've got a local walk that I can just go out and get, like Ben, some great birding on my doorstep, but for others it was difficult. But you actually took to the garden, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Yeah, these
I mean, I would have I've got Haybridge Pit right on my doorstep. But the difficulty was that it was so popular that you might as well have been walking down the middle of Chelmsford High Street on Christmas Eve. Yeah. It was terrible. And I just thought about it. I thought, I'm going to stick to my garden. And that's what I did largely. And I kept me sanity because I had something to focus on. And as you see, the garden is a wildlife garden. It means in theory you have to do less than in a traditional garden, but actually it's hard work, I would have to say. But you know, in the winter, Carla and I moved I'd had a very leaky pond right at the end of the garden, so we redug that and put it right up close to the house so we can sit in our lounge and watch what's going on there.
Nice.
And yeah, just concentrated on birds and beasts, really.
Yes, you focused on more than birds, didn't you?
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah, I think my list currently for the year is somewhere between 800 and 900 species for the year. Various bits and bobs.
Is that just in your garden?
Just in my garden, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, of those, well over 500 are going to be Lepidoptera, moths and butterflies. But yeah, I've found other things. I mean, bottom right there is quite a rare bee in Essex. It's a brown-banded carder bee, and I was rather surprised to see that. And I had Ted Benton kindly confirm the identification of that. I was pretty sure what it was, but I thought I'd better get Ted to check that one out. Up the top left there, you've got, I put that in because that's actually got a bit of an Essex link to it. It's called EBwS, and that is named after, now which one is it? Is it Stephen Dewick? One of the Dewicks who built what is possibly the world's biggest moth trap at Curry Farm, Bradwell-on-Sea.
Wow.
And in the 50s, he caught the first Essex specimen of the EBwS and had the honour of it being named after him. So I thought I'd put that in. It's got a little bit of an Essex slant to it.
And have you taken the paintbrush to this one, Simon?
That is just a stunning moth.
Absolutely amazing.
That looks like it's been watercoloured, but that is a beautiful marbled. It's an increasingly, well, I wouldn't say common, it's still pretty rare, but it's coming over in increasing numbers from the continent, climate change and all that sort of thing. It's called a beautiful marbled. Amazing. And I think that's, as far as the Essex Field Club website is concerned, that's the 3rd Essex record. I had that in the garden this year.
The dragonflies didn't take long to find your pond.
Certainly didn't. There's a southern hawker there that was oviposting one day, and then there's in the middle at the bottom there, everyone will recognise. They are very common, dark bordered bee fly. They have that classic little long oviposter, very common species, very early spring to mid sort of springtime. And down in the left-hand corner, that is a tiny little jumping spider. Now, I can't remember its name. I'm going to have to look that up. It's called Euophrys frontalis. But that is one hell of a smart little thing that was living on our new pond, on the rocks around the pond. So it's amazing what you find when you just start looking.
Yeah.
How big was that one? What?
I would say that was probably 4 or 5 mil.
4 or 5 mil.
Amazing.
It's small, but that's just cracking look. It looks as if it's been almost designed by a sports car designer, or at least the colouring on it.
It's real stealth, isn't it?
Yeah, cracking little thing. And this was an extension of the mothing. As one or two of us, well, probably a few more than that, but a few of us across Essex thought we'd have a concerted effort using pheromones. Pheromones are a well-known attractant for moths, and one particular family are the day-flying clearwings. Very rarely seen, proving to be probably more common than people used to think now that pheromone use is getting more common, but nonetheless, they're absolute corkers. And as you can see, they're classic mimics. Yeah. I mean, bottom, I've got to get these right now. Hang on, I'm trying to remember which is which. Bottom left there is a lunar hornet underwing. Right. And top right is a similar one called hornet clearwing. Top left is a raspberry clearwing, which is a new arrival in Britain, first found in Cambridgeshire a few years ago, but now spreading quite quickly through Essex. Top one in the middle is probably our commonest clearwing, yellow-legged. That's found quite a lot I mean, that was the only one I'd really seen before I started pheromone use. And that I even got one of them in late September, I think.
Amazing.
And then at the bottom, you've got I can't remember what we've got, a red belted clearing on the right, and the center one at the bottom is a red tipped clear wing. I really should put my glasses on, but
I can zoom in a little bit, but absolutely amazing.
it's a funny
Amazing
distance
thing.
for me.
Look at the detail there. Absolutely.
Yeah, they are
Red tip
stunners.
to the wing.
Absolutely stunners. So they turned up in my garden. I wasn't just getting one of these to the pheromones, I was getting a few. So, you know, the yellow leg was the commonest, probably had 20 or 30 of them.
And you're pretty big on moths in the mothing world, aren't you? So if people are interested in moths or want to get into it,
yeah,
who do they contact or
well,
how do
it's
they get involved?
probably the best bet at the moment. I mean, they can email me, and you know, that can be a direct message to me. I can provide an email at some point if someone gets in touch with the society. But we have a Facebook page, the Essex Moth Group, which numbers some 300 or so members now. And that's there basically for people to share their information, to get identification advice, share moth nights and this sort of thing, where, you know, where people can come along. So yeah, it's a growing interest. Yeah, growing interest generally.
Good. But let's get back on track.
Yeah, we went a bit off kilter there, really.
No, that was really good, really interesting. And again, people are broader than just, you know, one particular field anyway, so it's good to touch base with that. But nest build, again, in your garden, nest building time, isn't it? Kind of.
Very much so. I mean, it coincided, the lockdown mid-March, with things really starting to think about that time of year, and there was a lot of song, a lot of display. Wrens are famous for building several nests and finally choosing one of those, hopefully. In the garden, there was certainly a lot of activity, and I put a nest box up in our carport, and within 2 days, lo and behold, this little chap was belting backwards and forwards, working through the garden, putting stuff into this nest box. But alas, it wasn't to be. He moved somewhere else.
She wasn't going to take him up on the offer, because the males make the nest, don't they? Kind of. Yeah. But then these males get up to all different kinds of.
Well, yeah. I mean, Dannocks, they are notorious for their unusual sexual practices. I think is probably the best way to put it. I won't go any further tonight. But there was regularly 2 or 3 chasing each other around in the garden for probably 3 or 4 weeks. We think possibly they may have tried to nest behind them. It's a bit difficult to see, but we created a log pile. And they did seem to hang around that a lot, but we don't
nest low, don't they?
Yeah, they might have nested in there, but we weren't able to absolutely confirm that. Cool. So,
but you did have some breeding success.
Yeah, I think possibly they bred in trees just around the front of the house, goldfinches. But we certainly by middle end of May, we were getting a lot of young goldfinches into the seed feeders. They love the sunflower hearts.
It's that time the garden goes wild, doesn't it? Particularly when these characters turn up.
Yeah, you get the bunch of nutters, as I call them, young starlings in, seeming to have not a care in the world, bashing around everywhere. And that photo for me sort of sums them up, really. Just complete madness with wings at that time of year, I think.
Water's so important, isn't it? There's a feisty one.
Yeah, there's a feisty little blue tit, holding his own against a much bigger sparrow, house sparrow that is. This was all in a little stream that we'd created that runs into the pond, runs on the pump, and it was amazing how birds were attracted to that running water.
Moving water.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I had a grey wagtail come into a 1-year-old stream that I put into our garden. Not been back, but that was a highlight. Overwintered in our garden.
Funny you should say that, because we've had grey wag this autumn, and
have you?
Since. Yeah.
But look at this guy. Wow.
Yeah, this
female, isn't it?
It was a female type thing. Yeah. There were, I think we worked out that there were at least 4 different birds, sparrowhawks, visiting the garden for a period of time, and it did tell the number of birds slowly declined for a period. We were getting very few in for a while, but what this female did was she started specialising on wood mouse. We get quite a few wood mice in the garden, and this one had a habit of sitting on this oak stump. There wasn't actually a tree there, it was just a stump I got in, but it'd sit there and watch the base of the tree where there's lots of scrub around it, and the mice got, and every so often it'll pile in there. You'd sometimes see it running round and round and round, but it'd catch a wood mouse and bring it back to there and disembowel it, and there you go.
Nice.
Is that common for sparrowhawks to take small rodents?
I had the same. Yeah, I had the same. Matt, I had 3 birds in, all taking mice from the garden under the feeders.
Yeah, I mean, they do it. I mean, it's not a main thing, but like any bird, they're a sort of opportunist.
Yeah.
And if they see something that's easy, they'll have it.
Yeah.
So they certainly were.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Pale buzzard.
Oh, this is a cracker. I mean, I'd have loved to have seen it closer. But interestingly, only yesterday at Munden, which is a couple of miles down the road, I do wonder whether we actually caught up with the same bird, because it looked very similar to this, and I haven't yet looked at the photos. But you know, at a distance, when it flew in, you almost think, oh, hang on, better check that at this time of year for a rough-legged buzzard. But obviously, this was April, May. And all we were getting now, I say all, we were starting to get a big passage of buzzard over regularly. I think the peak day we had about 14 during one of the days in April, but most days we were getting somewhere between 6 and 10. Now, some of them were obviously locals, but we've worked out that there's a lot of raptors seem to drift down what we call the Wickham Bishop's Ridge. So the area of high ground connecting Malden through to Colchester, really. So you got Wickham Bishop's, Tiptree, and they seem to drift down that. And we get quite a lot of the migration off the end of that, because that's where we're sitting at the end of that. Very little is seen just over the other side of Malden Hill.
Interesting.
I know that Daryl Rhymes, who's just over the other side of Malden, or was, I think he's moved now. And the other guys up there, John Buchanan and who else is up there? Tony Kennelly. They don't quite get the number of raptors, which is interesting.
During lockdown, Howard, you were also watching the garden, and a group of your mates in East London and were too. Were you seeing buzzards and things?
Yeah, I mean, we got everyone together from basically our local WhatsApp group, which covers the Met Essex area, but also a few North London lads and a couple of us down here in North Kent. And we sort of started up a lockdown competition as such. No prize competition, but just get people out in their gardens and looking. And the raptor passage was actually quite phenomenal. The red kite passage was ridiculous this year in March and April. I think in April there was, in our Essex sector, we had over 100 red kite sightings, and some people were having a dozen a day go over their house, and several of these were seen as well. Ospreys and white-tailed eagle. Yeah, we had I think during March to May, I think there were 6 white-tailed eagle sightings across the county, and 2 of them were over, inside the M25 from people's back gardens.
Yeah.
So
This osprey was from your garden, was it?
It was indeed. It was one of at least 4 we had this spring. I mean, it was crazy, really. I've seen them locally before, but to have at least 4 heading over the garden is quite incredible. And it was just typical of the raptor migration, as Howard said, this spring. I mean, we weren't getting half a dozen red kite. We're that bit further east, so we're not getting that, but we were still getting a couple of red kite probably most days during April,
Yeah.
sometimes a few more. So it really was impressive. And there seemed to be sparrowhawk some days as well going through, and we had the odd kestrel, and I had 2 very early hobbies in the first week of April.
Wow.
Right.
But then you had these, and you had a few mates that you were networking as well with,
Yeah,
Simon,
well,
that helped with this.
That's right, very much so. We have a dingy birders WhatsApp group, and some of those live actually within Malden. So we got Nick Linz, who lives in what would be best described as the Eagle's Nest, I guess. He's got a roof terrace right up on the high street in Malden, so he's really high, got a commanding view right down the estuary. So the story unfolded with this one that I noticed that there were these 3 cranes being tracked out of Suffolk across the west end of the Stour, sort of over Manningtree, Wicks area, Rabness area, I think, and heading to Abberton, where they were subsequently seen. At that point, I gave Nick a ring, or I think I might have texted him or whatever, and said, "Get up on your roof." Well, it wasn't that long before he shouted, "I've got them." And they were coasting along the estuary. Now, of course, they decided to go along the southern edge of Malden. John Buchanan had a cracking view of them going right over his garden. This was the best we managed from our garden, but nonetheless, it was 3 cranes for the garden list.
Good bird.
Brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. It just shows what migration over your garden could bring. I mean, we had tree pipit went over. I think very early one morning we did a dawn chorus, and there was tree pipit went over, of which we also had one later in lockdown in August. But it was just everything that we were getting that I didn't think was feasible. Water rail I got. I mean, I've been here 10 years. There's reed beds not that far away. Water rail calling several nights, at least 2. So,
because Howard, I don't know whether you got any cranes over Kent your way or track these, did you? But some of your guys were doing nocturnal migration as well and finding.
Yeah, so the people are spending all this time in their garden and were picking up more stuff during the day, but then they started actually, some of the guys were doing knock mig as well, so putting up the microphone and seeing what they could record of an evening, and they were picking up, particularly early in April, lots of coot and moorhen on the move, and so even us without the equipment were going out the garden and sitting up the garden and listening, and most of us have got coot and moorhen for the garden list from this spring, and quite a few of us got common scoter. They were picking up the scoter flocks heading over London. There was a vast movement this year, and the knock mig has really shown it up, and we were told that you could actually hear them, and it's sort of like a weird little whistle and whir as they go over.
Wow.
And I'd had word from Max Helicar was having them going over his house in Southend, going south, and they were already being reported over the middle of London. So I just went and set up my garden, and in the space of an hour and a half, I had 2 flocks of scoter, coot, moorhen, and snipe.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, so it's the knock mig is proving that the stuff is out there, but I like to hear it myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do knock mig. I mean, it's fantastically worthwhile, and it's pulled some fantastic birds out for the Met guys during the season. There's been several Auckland buntings. People were picking out all the passage waders you can imagine, plus a few unexpected things. I think a couple of the North London boys had snow bunting and Lapland bunting at night time, and normally we think of them as being diurnal migrants, but they're picking up this stuff at night time as well. So it's
Brilliant.
I think people are putting in the time and having more time in their garden, and the birds are being found.
Birds are being heard. Yeah. No, it's so true. And then diurnal migration is picking up wheat ears. This is Lorraine, Howard.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that feels like it's a nice Greenland wheat here to me. That one, it's a nice, bold, upright, and
Dark.
ridiculously coloured.
Mm.
Vivid.
Greenland wheat ears always feel like they're going to fall over backwards to me.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, one of the two hoopoes that were seen in the spring.
This was the foul nest one. This
That's
one.
the foul nest one, which stayed for over a week. And there was one in a garden in Ingatstone as well in April, about the same sort of time.
Yeah.
And there was other overshoot birds, the red rump swallow in the Lee Valley, and as we headed into further into the spring, there was a couple of black kites seen as well.
Yeah.
The first ring-oos, so those cranes that Simon mentioned as they headed down the coast.
It was just so important, wasn't it? To have that kind of sense of escape and release.
Yeah.
For me, as I said, I could walk out from the door.
Yeah.
And this was kind of just after, I think before 6 o'clock in the morning, was it? 7:20, just after 7. And I walked into a little thicket not far from home and just was watching long-tailed tit busying around and things like that. Next thing that happened, this female sparrowhawk came, she flew right around me within 3 meters twice, circled me, landed where she's perched there about 5 meters in front of me. And I, as slowly as I could, reached down for my camera in my holster and slowly brought it up and just kind of hid behind my camera and started to get ready to take a few pictures of her snapping. She started calling and she called in the male. And I've got on video, the male came in, mated with her, and then they sat together for just 10, 20 seconds before he flew off. And for me, that particular morning, I had a lot of stuff going on and I just kind of needed my own space. And just that moment with nature was just like kind of, standing under a waterfall. I just stood there to be entrusted with that moment. And then I walked a little further and I looked up and saw that.
Wow.
And but it was so important, wasn't it, to be getting outside and just finding that space and connecting with nature. Certainly for me.
The joy of it is that at that time, it was possible to, if wherever you lived, to try and get out from home, not drive anywhere, still stay safe, avoid the people, and get out there and explore around where you live. I know I live out of the county now, but everyone was in the same situation, and it was the opportunity to literally find what was on your doorstep and recharge yourself, learn, and keep some semblance of sanity, to be perfectly honest.
So what kept me sane was when I looked at this, nature, creation as I would call it, was getting on as normal. There was a normality and the usual cycle happening there, even though my life was crazy and everything around me in society was crazy, everything just upheaval. I went out into this and there was that sense of normality and that just brought sanity to me. So I think right. Thanks for sharing, Simon, from your garden.
Thank you very much.
What was your total on birds from your garden? Do you know?
So far?
Yeah, both of you guys. And Steve as well. You were
I'm on 86 from my garden so far.
I think I'm the same. I'm 86 or 87. I can't remember. Field fair I haven't added yet, and that makes it 86 or 87. So that's interesting.
That's interesting.
I think I've got 15 new birds though for the garden list this year.
Yeah.
And that's just about time invested.
Yeah.
Time spent not just working in the garden, but actually having time to sit in the garden and watch the sky and sit out there of a night time.
Yeah.
It's all odd. It's still odd.
Yeah, it is. Ed.
Yeah.
Rest is kind of odd for us, isn't it? We've lived so
Yeah.
busy to actually properly rest. And yeah. So we'll have a couple of minutes. We'll say goodbye to Simon. No other questions come in?
Nothing yet. No, but I'll check the
Brilliant.
YouTube channel shortly.
Good,
Good.
good.
See you,
Thank-
Simon.
Yep.
Yes,
Bye,
Simon.
everyone.
And we'll see you next month.
You certainly will.
Have a
See
good
you all. Stay safe.
Merry
Yeah.
Christmas.
See you, Simon.
Have a great Christmas, Simon.
Yeah.
See you later.
See you, Simon.
Simon. I don't know where Simon's going.
Great.
Okay.
And then there
Good.
were 4.
Yes.
So, anything else you wanted to chat about, guys, from spring while people are just making a cup of coffee or tea or whatever? I ain't got a
Yeah, I'm
countdown or anything. So,
Not sure whether Mr. Grimwade was going to just talk about the amazing spring that the northeast corner of the county had during lockdown.
Yeah. Some good birds. Obviously, we were most of us were stuck, not be able to travel. So, but yeah, the nays and Holland Haven did really, really well. Rise reed warbler. What else was there? Red rump swallow,
Red-breasted flycatcher.
red-breasted flycatcher. Yeah.
Great
Common
reed warbler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Redback shrike.
Yeah.
Bee-eater.
And well, in fact, that leads us on nicely to the result of the Essex Birdwatching Society Bird of the Year.
wow, drum roll.
Yeah.
Drum roll, by the way.
Phil did that.
The voting is finished. Everyone will be pleased to know. But firstly, can I just say thank you to everyone that took part. We actually had, I haven't done a final count, but it was somewhere between 350 and 400 total votes. And really, it was only something we thought up on spur of the moment 3 or 4 days ago. So I think the response has been really good. And I'd just like to thank everyone for taking part and for the messages as well that have been posted on Twitter. So the final 4, as we know, were the bee-eater, the black guillemot, white-tailed eagle, and the subalpine warbler. And they finished in the following order. In 4th place was subalpine warbler. In 3rd place was European bee-eater. 2nd place, white-tailed eagle. But in 1st place, with 43.3% of the vote, was the black guillemot.
Wow.
I think it's a
Wow.
brilliant birds. I know I was lucky enough to see it. And in fact, I think I can put up an absolutely terrible picture I took of it. Hold on, there you go. I don't know if you can see that.
Come on.
It's a pretty shocking picture, but
Quality, that was.
it was
There
a
it is.
brilliant bird, wasn't it? Absolutely fantastic bird. And
Which
I
one is
remember
that,
that
Matt?
I kind of I walked at about 1,000,000 miles an hour to go and see that. I don't remember, Steve. I shot off, didn't I?
I remember you were off like a shot because you'd never seen one before.
No, that was a lifer for me. Yeah, so I was really,
Brilliant.
really
Just off
pleased.
Old Hall Marshes, that was.
Yeah.
So
very
there
good.
was a second bird at Mistley
Yeah.
about 10 days later, which was a different bird,
Different
Yeah.
bird.
which
That's
is
right.
where I think where all the other Essex guys caught up with it.
Yeah, I think the news went out
Adrian
that there was a
Keppel.
black guillemot behind the co-op. I think was the message that went out. So yeah, that was quite astonishing, really.
Yeah. They're a rare bird in Essex, aren't they? I mean,
Do we know who found either of those?
Adrian Kettle found the
Did he?
Mistley one.
Yeah.
Not
And-
sure who found the old hole.
So I just
No.
wanted to give a bit of a shout out actually to people that are finding these birds. And, certainly people like myself appreciate that and the news. I put a message to Daryl Rhymes, I think it was tonight on Twitter, found a fair share of birds this year. And
Daryl Style as well, of course. He
Yeah.
finds
yeah,
lots and lots of
great.
stuff as well. So I think between the two Daryls, the rarities in Essex have got no chance.
Good.